There are two solid magnets sitting close to each other. Nothing touches, nothing moves. And yet something powerful is already happening. Between those magnets, a force is active. It pushes, it pulls, it decides whether the magnets slam together or fight each other apart. That space looks empty, but it is not empty at all. Most people grow up believing a simple idea: magnets attract or repel. They do it somehow, and the space between them is just space. Air, nothing, a gap. That belief feels comfortable. It feels obvious. It feels finished. But physics says that belief is wrong. Between those magnets is not nothing. It is not silent. It is not passive. It is filled with something real, measurable, and deeply strange. Something that carries energy, something that stores tension, something that can bend paths, change motion, and act across empty space without touching anything at all. This video is about that hidden thing. By the end of this video, you will understand what truly exists between magnets. You will know why they can pull from a distance. You will see why this idea changed how scientists think about space itself. And you will discover a fact that quietly breaks one of the most common assumptions about reality. Here is the surprising truth. Magnets do not reach across empty space. They do not send invisible hands to grab each other. They do not act through nothing. They act through something that fills the space completely. And once that clicks, magnets stop being simple toys. They become proof that space itself can carry power. This matters more than most people realize, because the same idea explains electric forces. It explains how motors work. It explains how electricity flows without direct contact. It even connects to how light moves through the universe. The space between objects is not just a background. It can be active. It can store energy. It can push back. When two magnets are brought close, their interaction does not begin at the surface. It begins in the space between them. That space already knows what will happen. When opposite poles face each other, the space tightens, energy lowers, motion becomes inevitable. When like poles face each other, the space resists. Energy builds, motion is blocked. Nothing visible changes in that gap, but everything important happens there. This idea took scientists a long time to accept. For centuries, forces were thought to act instantly across empty space. That explanation felt magical. It felt incomplete. Then came the realization that forces do not jump across nothing. They move through fields. A field is not an object you can hold. It has no shape. It has no color, but it is real. It fills space. It carries energy. It applies force. Between magnets exists a magnetic field. It is not a drawing. It is not a metaphor. It is a physical structure in space itself. And that is where things get unsettling. Because if a field can exist where there appears to be nothing, then empty space is no longer empty. It becomes a medium, a participant, something that can influence matter without being matter. This single idea quietly reshaped modern physics. It changed how scientists describe forces. It changed how machines are built. It changed how reality is modeled at the deepest level. And yet most people never hear this explained clearly. They see magnets stick together. They move on. In the next moments of this video, that hidden layer will be exposed. The invisible structure between magnets will be broken down in simple terms. No equations, no jargon, just the core truth behind the force. By the end, magnets will no longer feel ordinary. That empty gap will no longer feel empty, and a simple object you have seen your whole life will suddenly point to something far bigger about how the universe works. If you enjoy videos that uncover the hidden rules behind everyday things, you are in the right place. This channel is about the quiet ideas that change how reality looks once you truly see them. Welcome to the channel. Subscribe now and stay with us until the end. A magnet always has two sides. One is called north, the other is called south. These two sides are not optional. You cannot have one without the other. Cut a magnet in half, and each piece still has a north and a south. This alone is strange. It means magnetism is built into the object itself, not added later. When two magnets come close, Their poles decide what happens next. Opposite poles pull toward each other, like poles push away. This behavior is consistent. It never changes. The result looks simple, but the cause is not. The force appears even when the magnets never touch. There is no contact, no friction, no visible connection, and yet the force is real. You can feel it with your hands. You can measure it with instruments. Something is clearly acting between them. This matters because forces usually need contact. A push needs a hand. A pull needs a rope. Magnetism breaks that rule. The force shows up across empty space. That means the space itself is part of the process. It is not just a gap. It is involved. Without that space doing something, the force would not exist. The magnets would be silent. Nothing would happen. But something does happen every time. That something has a name. Between the magnets exists a magnetic field. It is not an idea or a trick. It is a physical feature of space. You cannot see it with your eyes, but it surrounds the magnet at all times. It spreads outward in all directions. It grows stronger near the magnet and weaker farther away. When another magnet enters this region, the field responds. Energy shifts, forces appear, motion follows. This field fills the space completely. It pushes and it pulls. It does not wait for contact. When magnets move closer, their fields meet first. Those fields begin to interact before the magnets ever touch. If the interaction lowers energy, the magnets rush together. If the interaction raises energy, they resist each other and push apart. The motion you see is only the final step. The real action happens in the space before that motion begins. There are no tiny hooks reaching out from one magnet to grab the other. There are no invisible strings snapping tight. Nothing is flying back and forth. The interaction does not work that way. Instead, the field itself changes. Energy rearranges inside the space. The force comes from how the field reacts to another field nearby. This is why magnetism feels smooth and immediate. It is not a message sent across space. It is space responding. An easy way to understand this is through waves in water. You see the ripple move across the surface, not the individual water molecules. The effect is visible, even though the motion underneath stays hidden. Magnetic fields work in a similar way. You observe attraction and repulsion, but the field doing the work stays invisible. The ripple is the force. The water is the field. When two magnetic fields overlap, they do not cancel each other randomly. They combine in specific ways. They can strengthen each other. They can fight each other. The result depends on direction and alignment. This interaction stores energy in space itself. That stored energy is what later turns into motion. Space is not just hosting the event. It is shaping it. As magnets move, the field adjusts instantly. There is no delay. No pause. The space between them always reflects the current state of the system. This is why magnetism feels direct and unavoidable. The field is always there, already waiting. Most people are taught to think of space as nothing, a gap, a blank area where nothing exists until something moves into it. This idea feels natural because space looks empty. You can see through it. You can walk through it. Nothing seems to be there. But physics quietly breaks this assumption. Space is not just an absence. When a field exists, space becomes active. It gains structure. It gains energy. It gains the ability to push back. A magnetic field turns empty space into something physical, not solid, not visible, but effective. The field carries force without needing matter. It does not rely on contact or collision. It does its work silently, through space itself. This is why magnets can act from a distance. The force is not traveling from one magnet to the other like a thrown object. The force already exists in the space between them. That space is doing real work. When opposite poles face each other, their fields blend in a way that lowers energy. The space between them becomes stable. Movement toward each other becomes natural. The magnets accelerate without being touched. The pull feels smooth and inevitable. The field guides the motion the entire time. When like poles face each other, the opposite happens. Their fields clash. Energy builds in the space. The gap resists change. Pushing the magnets together feels harder and harder, even though nothing visible blocks them. This makes the space between magnets feel alive. It reacts. It responds. It controls what happens next. The interaction does not sit on the surface of the magnets. It fills the region between them. Every point in that space plays a role. Each part of the field contributes to the final motion. This turns the gap into a quiet battlefield. Forces overlap, directions compete, energy shifts back and forth. The outcome depends on how those invisible structures align. What makes this unsettling is how normal it looks from the outside. You see two objects moving. You do not see the reason. Your eyes tell you nothing is happening between them. Your brain fills the gap with the idea of emptiness. But the field is there the entire time, shaping the result with precision. This is why magnetism feels strange even after it is explained. Human senses are built to track solid objects and direct contact. Fields do not fit that model. You cannot see them, you cannot hold them, you cannot point to where they begin or end, yet they apply force as reliably as any physical push. The moment you accept that space itself can carry energy, many everyday ideas start to shift. The gap between objects stops being passive, distance stops being neutral. Space becomes part of the system, not just the stage where things happen. This is the deeper reason magnets feel mysterious. They expose a truth that usually stays hidden. Empty space is not always empty. When a field exists, space becomes an active participant, quietly deciding how matter is allowed to move. So now the picture is clear. The space between magnets is not empty. It is filled with magnetic influence. A structure you cannot see, but one that controls everything that happens. The pull, the push, the resistance, all of it begins in that invisible region. Magnetism is not magic, and it is not action across nothing. It is space itself doing work. This is the part that quietly breaks the brain. Invisible does not mean nothing. Some of the most powerful forces in nature leave no mark on the eye. They move objects, they store energy, they decide motion, and they do it without ever becoming visible. Once you see this, magnets stop feeling simple. They become a reminder that reality is deeper than what our senses report. And that leaves one final thought hanging in the air. If the space between magnets is not truly empty, then what else do we call empty just because we cannot see it? What other invisible structures are shaping the world around us right now? If this idea made you pause, give this video a like. It helps more people discover content like this. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden rules behind everyday things, subscribe to the channel. More mind-bending truths are waiting.